The cold wind bit through his thin jacket as he stepped into the grand lobby of the bank. His hands, rough from years of struggle, clutched a small, worn-out envelope. It was all he had left, a glimmer of hope in a world that had long turned its back on him. People around him barely spared a glance, too caught up in their own lives to notice the man who carried his past on his shoulders like an old, tattered coat. His name was Marcus. He had once been someone, had dreams, ambitions, but life had a way of unraveling those plans faster than he could hold them together. Now, he was just another nameless figure lost in the shuffle, judged by his appearance before he could even open his mouth. The moment he stepped forward in line, the whispers started. A bank teller, a young woman with sharp eyes and a forced smile, glanced at him and then at the security guard standing nearby. Her voice, laced with suspicion, cut through the quiet hum of the bank. "Sir, do you need help?" she asked, her eyes scanning him from head to toe. Marcus swallowed hard and nodded. "I just need to cash this," he said, placing the envelope on the counter. The teller barely looked at it. Instead, she leaned back, making a show of wrinkling her nose. "Do you even have an account here?" she asked, her voice loud enough for others to hear. A man in line behind Marcus chuckled under his breath. A woman a few steps away clutched her purse tighter. He knew this scene all too well, people assuming, judging, deciding who he was without knowing anything about him. The security guard took a step closer. "Maybe you should try somewhere else," he muttered, as if speaking to someone who had wandered in by mistake. Heat crawled up Marcus's neck, but he kept his voice steady. "Please, just check." The teller sighed dramatically and opened the envelope, her fingers hesitant, as if touching it would taint her. Then she froze. Her eyes darted over the contents once, then again, and her posture changed in an instant. She glanced at the security guard, then at the bank manager who had stepped out of his office. Something was wrong, or maybe something was right in a way no one had expected. At that moment, the glass doors of the bank swung open, and an older man in a crisp suit walked in. He was clearly important. His presence alone commanded attention. The moment he saw Marcus, his expression changed. Not to one of disgust or pity, but of recognition. His eyes drifted downward, locking onto something Marcus was wearing. And just like that, the entire room seemed to shift. The tension, the judgment, the laughter, they all disappeared in an instant. The bank owner took another step forward, his voice calm yet firm. "Everyone step aside," he said. "This man is not who you think he is." The entire bank fell silent. Even the security guard, who had been ready to escort Marcus out, hesitated. Marcus felt the weight of a dozen eyes on him, but he had no idea what was happening. Who was this man? And how did he know him? But before he could even ask, the scene changed. Just across town, another story was unfolding, one just as unexpected. On a crowded city bus, a teenager named Jamal sat quietly, scrolling through his phone. The bus was packed, passengers squeezed together, some lost in conversation, others staring out the window, waiting for their stop. Then he noticed her, a woman standing near the front, her hand resting on her swollen belly. She looked exhausted, shifting her weight from one foot to the other, struggling to keep her balance with each jolt of the bus. Jamal didn't hesitate. He stood up and gestured for her to take a seat. "Ma'am, you can sit here," he said with a small smile. The woman blinked in surprise, then smiled warmly. "Oh, thank you," she said as she eased into the seat, relief washing over her face. It was a simple act, one that Jamal didn't think twice about. But what he didn't know was that this small moment of kindness would change his life forever. A few minutes later, as the bus slowed to a stop, the woman reached into her bag, pulled out a small folded piece of paper, and pressed it into Jamal's hand. "Read it when you get home," she whispered before stepping off the bus. Confused, Jamal looked down at the note, feeling its weight despite its size. He had no idea what was written inside, but whatever it was, it would shift the course of his life in a way he never could have imagined. 2 lives, 2 unexpected turns, and 2 moments that would prove the world was never as simple as it seemed. And neither Marcus nor Jamal had any idea what was coming next. Marcus felt the stares pressing down on him like a heavy weight. The teller's hands trembled as she held the envelope, her mouth slightly open, as if words had failed her. The security guard, who only moments ago had been ready to throw him out, shifted uncomfortably, his grip loosening on the belt of his uniform. The bank manager, an older man with salt and pepper hair, stepped forward cautiously, his eyes flicking between Marcus and the bank owner who had just walked in. The bank owner, Mr. Whitmore, studied Marcus carefully. His gaze wasn't filled with pity or suspicion, it was something else. Recognition. He took a deep breath and looked at what Marcus was wearing. It wasn't much, a worn-out coat, scuffed shoes, clothes that had seen better days. But around his neck, barely visible beneath the collar of his shirt, was a small pendant. The moment Mr. Whitmore saw it, his entire expression changed. Marcus noticed the shift. It was like the entire room had been turned upside down. The bank employees, who had dismissed him just moments ago, now seemed unsure of themselves. The customers who had whispered and sneered were watching with curiosity, trying to understand what had caused the sudden change in atmosphere. The manager cleared his throat. "Sir, do you know this man?" he asked hesitantly. Mr. Whitmore took a step closer, nodding slowly. "Yes," he said. "I do." Marcus frowned. He had never seen this man before in his life. "I think you're mistaken," he said, his voice rough but steady. "We've never met." The bank owner didn't answer immediately. Instead, he gestured to the teller. "Give him what he's here for," he said firmly. The teller swallowed hard, then quickly checked the contents of the envelope again. Her hands moved more carefully this time, as if she had realized whatever was inside wasn't something to take lightly. Marcus watched in confusion. Just a few minutes ago, these people were ready to throw him out. Now they were treating him like someone important.
But why?
Meanwhile, across town, Jamal sat on the bus, the small folded note still clutched in his hand. He turned it over between his fingers, his mind racing. Who was that woman? And why did she tell him to read the note later? He considered opening it right there, but something stopped him. Maybe it was the way she had looked at him, like she knew something he didn't. Or maybe it was just the strange feeling in his gut, telling him that whatever was written inside wasn't meant to be read in a hurry. The bus came to a stop near his neighborhood, and he shoved the note into his pocket before stepping out onto the sidewalk. The cold evening air made him pull his hoodie tighter around himself as he walked home. Jamal lived with his grandmother in a small apartment. She had raised him ever since he was a kid, teaching him to always be kind, no matter what. "People will remember how you made them feel, Jamal," she would say, "even if they don't remember your name." He thought about that as he reached his building, taking the stairs two at a time. Inside, the warmth of home wrapped around him, and the familiar scent of his grandmother's cooking filled the air. She was standing at the stove, stirring a pot of soup. "Hey, Grandma," Jamal greeted, dropping his backpack near the couch. She turned and smiled at him. "You're late today," she said. "Everything okay?" Jamal hesitated for a moment, then nodded.
"Yeah.
Just a long day." He sat at the table, pulling the note from his pocket. His fingers trembled slightly as he unfolded it. The handwriting was neat, careful, like someone had taken their time writing each word. "You don't know me, but today, you changed my life. What you did was more than just giving up a seat. It was a reminder that kindness still exists. I want to return the favor. Tomorrow, go to this address at 10 a.m. Someone will be waiting for you." Below the message, an address was written in clear, bold letters. Jamal read it twice, then a third time. His heart pounded in his chest. Who is this woman? And why would she want him to go somewhere? He pulled out his phone and typed the address into the map. His eyes widened when he saw where it led. It wasn't just any place. It was an office building in one of the wealthiest parts of the city. His grandmother noticed the look on his face. "Everything all right, baby?" she asked. Jamal hesitated. I don't know." Back at the bank, Marcus stood frozen, watching as the teller counted out the money from the envelope. He could feel the weight of everyone's eyes on him, but the only one that mattered was Mr. Whitmore's. Finally, Marcus spoke. "How do you know me?" The bank owner smiled faintly, but there was something heavy in his expression, something that looked like guilt. I don't know you, he admitted, but I know someone who did. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. Who? Mr. Whitmore took a deep breath. My father. Marcus's mind spun. He had no connection to this man's father. At least, none that he could remember. He was about to ask another question when the teller slid the money across the counter toward him. Marcus glanced down. His breath caught in his throat. It wasn't a small amount. It was life-changing. His hands shook as he picked up the bills. This didn't make sense. None of it did. Mr. Whitmore looked at him with a knowing expression. There's more to this than you realize, he said quietly. But first, we need to talk. The words sent a shiver down Marcus's spine. He had been ignored, judged, and discarded by the world for so long. But now, for the first time in years, it felt like someone was seeing him. And he had no idea why. Marcus sat in the sleek, polished office across from Mr. Whitmore, still trying to understand how he had ended up here. The bank had been a place of humiliation just moments ago, but now he was being treated like someone important. The crisp bills in his pocket felt unreal, like a dream that could slip away at any second. Mr. Whitmore sat behind his massive desk, his hands folded in front of him. The walls were lined with books, framed certificates, and photographs of important people. It was a world Marcus had never been a part of, and yet, somehow, he was sitting right in the middle of it. I know you have questions, Mr. Whitmore said, and I'll answer them. But first, I need to know something. He leaned forward. Where did you get that pendant? Marcus instinctively reached for the small piece of metal hanging around his neck. It was nothing special to most people, just a simple pendant with a faint engraving that had worn away over time. But to him, it was everything. It was my father's, Marcus said. It's the only thing I have left of him. Mr. Whitmore's jaw tightened. For a long moment, he said nothing, only nodding as if something had just been confirmed. I thought so, he finally said. Marcus frowned. What do you mean? The bank owner exhaled slowly. My father knew your father. A long time ago. Marcus felt his heart stop for a second. His father. The man he barely remembered. The man who had disappeared from his life when he was just a child. You knew him. Marcus's voice came out hoarse. Mr. Whitmore shook his head. No. But my father did. And from what I've been told, they weren't just acquaintances. Something about the way he said it made Marcus's stomach twist. Across town, Jamal barely slept that night. The note from the pregnant woman lay on his bedside table, the words running through his mind over and over. He had looked up the address again. It wasn't just any office building. It belonged to a law firm. A big one. The kind that handled business for wealthy clients. Why would a woman he had never met before tell him to go there? The next morning, he woke up early. His grandmother watched him curiously as he got dressed, putting more effort into his appearance than usual. Where are you off to? She asked. Jamal hesitated. Just checking something out. She gave him a knowing look but didn't press further. As he left the apartment, he felt a strange sense of anticipation, like he was walking toward something bigger than he understood. When he arrived at the address, the building was even more intimidating in person. Large glass windows, a doorman at the entrance, and people walking in and out wearing expensive suits. Jamal felt out of place in his hoodie and sneakers, but he took a deep breath and stepped inside. The receptionist looked up with a polite but curious expression. Can I help you? Jamal swallowed. Someone told me to come here. He pulled out the note and slid it across the counter. The receptionist read it, and for a moment, her brows lifted in surprise. Then she nodded and picked up the phone. One moment, please. Jamal shifted nervously, glancing around the room. Everything felt too fancy, too clean. What was he even doing here? Then, a door at the end of the hall opened, and a man in a tailored suit stepped out. He was in his late 40s, with sharp features and an air of importance. He looked at Jamal, then gestured for him to follow. Jamal hesitated but then stuffed his hands in his pockets and walked toward the office. Inside, the man sat behind a large wooden desk and motioned for Jamal to take a seat. You must be Jamal, he said. Jamal nodded slowly.
Yeah.
The man studied him for a moment before speaking. My name is Richard Holloway. I'm a lawyer, and I'm here because of that note you received. Jamal felt his throat dry up. Who was that woman? Richard folded his hands together. Her name is Claire Matthews. He paused, then added, and she's not just any woman. Jamal leaned forward. Then who is she? Richard's eyes flickered with something, caution maybe. She's the daughter of someone very powerful, and she asked me to deliver a message to you. Jamal's stomach flipped. What message? Richard pulled out an envelope and slid it across the desk. Read it. Jamal picked it up slowly, his fingers shaking slightly. He could feel the weight of whatever was inside before he even opened it. Meanwhile, Marcus sat in Mr. Whitmore's office, feeling the same sense of unease. My father and your father were partners, Mr. Whitmore said finally. A long time ago, before everything fell apart. Marcus frowned. Partners? Mr. Whitmore nodded. In business. But not just any business. He hesitated, then continued. They were involved in something complicated. Marcus could hear the tension in his voice. What do you mean? Mr. Whitmore exhaled. I mean, they built something together. And when my father betrayed your father, it cost him everything. Marcus felt like the air had been knocked out of his lungs. He had spent years thinking his father had simply disappeared, leaving him and his mother to struggle alone. But now he was hearing a completely different story. What happened? Marcus asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Mr. Whitmore looked him in the eye. That's what I want to find out. Marcus stared at him, trying to process everything. He had come to the bank just hoping to cash a check, never expecting to walk into a mystery about his own past. And yet, here he was. Back at the law office, Jamal unfolded the letter inside the envelope. The handwriting was the same as the note from the bus. Jamal, I owe you more than I can ever explain. What you did yesterday wasn't just an act of kindness, it was fate. And now I need to do something for you. What's inside this envelope will change everything. Read it carefully, and trust that you were meant to receive this. Jamal's heart pounded as he reached into the envelope and pulled out a document. His eyes scanned the words, but it took him a moment to fully understand what he was looking at. His breath caught in his throat. It was a legal document, and at the bottom, in bold letters, was a single sentence that made his entire world tilt on its axis. Jamal was being given something. Something he never expected. Something that would change his life forever. Marcus felt his whole world shift under him. The weight of Mr. Whitmore's words pressed down on him, heavy and suffocating. His father hadn't abandoned him. He had been betrayed. The life Marcus had known, the struggles, the nights spent wondering why his father never came back, all of it had been built on a lie. His fingers clenched the pendant around his neck as his mind raced. He looked at Mr. Whitmore, trying to read the expression on his face. There was something in the older man's eyes, regret, maybe even guilt. What do you mean my father lost everything? Marcus finally asked. His voice was low, but his chest tightened with anger. What happened between him and your father? Mr. Whitmore hesitated, then leaned back in his chair, his fingers tapping against the desk. Your father and mine started a company together. It was supposed to be something big, something that would set them both up for life. But when the business started making money, my father made a choice. He cut your father out. Marcus's stomach twisted. Cut him out? You mean he stole from him? Mr. Whitmore nodded. More than that. He manipulated contracts, forced your father out of the business entirely. And by the time your father realized what had happened, it was too late. My father had control of everything, and your father, he lost everything. Marcus's hands curled into fists. His whole life, he had believed his father had failed, that he had disappeared because he couldn't handle responsibility. But the truth was, he had been robbed of everything he built. He took a shaky breath. Why are you telling me this now? What do you want from me? Mr. Whitmore's expression turned serious. Because I found something. He reached into a drawer and pulled out a thick folder, sliding it across the desk. Documents. Proof of what happened. My father may be gone, but his mistakes didn't disappear with him. Marcus hesitated before reaching for the folder. The weight of it in his hands felt like holding years of lost time. I want to make things right, Mr. Whitmore said. Your father deserved better. And so do you. Marcus's mind raced with possibilities. Could this folder undo years of pain? Could it bring justice? Or was it too late? Across town, Jamal sat frozen in Richard Holloway's office, staring at the document in his hands. His fingers gripped the paper tightly as his eyes ran over the words again, trying to make sense of it. The legal document was clear he was being left something. Something big. Richard Holloway cleared his throat. Claire Matthews's father, he was a powerful man. A businessman, wealthy beyond measure. But he had secrets. And one of those secrets led him to you. Jamal's head snapped up. What do you mean? Richard hesitated. He believed in second chances. And Claire, she wanted to honor that. Jamal's chest tightened. He barely knew this woman. Why would she, or her family, leave anything to him? Richard slid another paper toward him. This is the deed to a property, he said. A foundation, meant to help young men like you. And Claire Matthews wanted you to be the first person to benefit from it. Jamal's breath hitched. A foundation? His voice was barely above a whisper. Richard nodded. She saw something in you, Jamal. She saw kindness. And she believed you were the kind of person who deserved an opportunity. Jamal sat back in his chair, his mind spinning. A day ago, he was just a kid on a bus, offering his seat to a stranger. Now he was being given a chance at something life-changing. But why him? His fingers tightened around the letter. It didn't make sense. Nothing about this made sense. He took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. What happens now? Richard leaned forward. That's up to you. Jamal looked down at the papers, feeling the weight of the choice in front of him. This could change everything. But could he trust it? Could he trust them? At the same time, Marcus sat in the bank office, staring at the proof of his father's betrayal. His heart pounded as he thought about everything this could mean. Justice. Revenge. Redemption. But before he could say anything, the door to the office swung open. A man stepped inside. And the moment Marcus saw his face, he knew everything was about to change. Marcus's mind raced as he stared at Richard. The weight of everything, the betrayal, the stolen money, the fund his father had tried to protect, pressed down on him like a crushing force. He could feel his pulse pounding in his ears. This wasn't just about him anymore. It never had been. His father had been fighting for something bigger, and now that fight was his. Richard folded his arms, watching Marcus carefully. So, what's it going to be? His voice was calm, but Marcus could hear the unspoken warning behind it. He wasn't just asking if Marcus wanted the truth. He was asking if Marcus was ready for what came with it. Marcus took a deep breath and looked at Mr. Whitmore. If my father wanted this money to help people, then I need to find out where it went. His voice was steady, determined. I want to see the records. Whitmore nodded and reached into his desk, pulling out another folder, thicker this time. This is everything I could find. Marcus flipped through the papers. Names, transactions, business deals that looked legitimate on the surface but were anything but. And then, his eyes landed on something that made his blood run cold. A name. One he hadn't expected to see. Richard Holloway. His breath caught. You were part of this? Richard didn't flinch. My firm handled a lot of things over the years. Marcus's hands clenched into fists. You helped your clients steal from my father. Richard met his gaze, unreadable. It wasn't that simple. Marcus felt anger rise in his chest. It never is it? Before Richard could respond, the office door burst open.
Jamal.
He looked breathless, his hands gripping a piece of paper. His eyes darted between Marcus, Whitmore, and Richard. I think I just found something. Marcus frowned. What? Jamal stepped forward, holding out the paper. I was given this today. A letter. It mentions the same fund you were talking about. Marcus took it and scanned the words quickly. His heart nearly stopped. The letter wasn't just about the stolen money. It was a confession. And it was signed by Richard Holloway. Marcus's head snapped up. You knew. This whole time you knew. Richard exhaled slowly. I tried to fix it. Marcus shook his head, his grip tightening on the letter. No. You tried to bury it. Jamal stepped forward. That money was supposed to go to families, to people like mine. And now you're telling me it was all stolen. Richard finally looked away, his jaw tightening. Yes. The word hung in the air like a thunderclap. Marcus took a deep breath, the anger still burning inside him, but now something else was taking its place. Resolve. Then we expose it. All of it. Richard's expression darkened. If you do that, you'll be putting yourself in danger. Marcus stared at him. So was my father. And I won't let what he fought for die. Jamal nodded, stepping beside Marcus. Neither will I. Whitmore hesitated, then sighed. Then let's make it right. Marcus looked at the folder, then at the letter in his hand. The truth was finally out. But the fight wasn't over yet. And as he and Jamal walked out of the office together, they both knew this was just the beginning. Marcus's heart pounded as he clutched the letter. The weight of everything, the truth about his father, the stolen fund, and the man standing before him, felt unbearable. But he knew there was no turning back now. He had spent too long searching for answers. Now he had them. And he had to act. Jamal's eyes flickered between Marcus and Richard, his hands clenched into fists. So, what happens now? His voice was low but steady, filled with the same determination Marcus felt burning inside. Richard sighed, rubbing his temples, as if he were exhausted. If you take this public, you're opening a door you can't close. Marcus didn't hesitate. That door should have never been shut in the first place. Richard studied him for a long moment, then nodded as if he had expected that answer. Then you better be prepared. He pulled out his phone and made a call. His voice was calm, controlled. It's happening. He didn't wait for a response before ending the call. Marcus and Jamal exchanged a wary glance. What did you just do? Marcus asked. Richard exhaled slowly. If you're serious about exposing the truth, you're going to need protection. Before Marcus could respond, the office door swung open again. This time, it wasn't a nervous assistant or a curious bystander. It was Claire Matthews. Her presence immediately changed the energy in the room. She was poised but serious, her expression unreadable. She glanced at the letter in Marcus's hands, then back at Richard. So, you finally told them. Marcus frowned. You knew. Claire nodded. For a long time. Jamal took a step forward, his voice tense. Then why didn't you do anything? Claire looked at him, her gaze soft but unwavering. Because sometimes the truth only matters when the right people find it. Marcus's frustration bubbled over. And what does that even mean? Claire walked over to Richard's desk and placed a small USB drive on the surface. This is what your father was trying to protect. Marcus hesitated before picking it up. What's on it? Claire's voice was steady. Everything. Jamal peered over his shoulder. What do you mean, everything? Claire exhaled. Every transaction. Every stolen dollar. Every name involved, including the people who made sure your father never got the chance to fight back. Marcus swallowed hard. His hands shook as he gripped the tiny device. His father had been silenced, forced into the shadows, but now, Marcus had the proof. Richard's voice was quiet. You understand what this means, don't you? Marcus nodded. It means no more secrets. A tense silence settled over the room. Then, suddenly, Claire's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, and her expression changed instantly. We have a problem. Jamal tensed. What kind of problem? Claire's jaw tightened. Someone else knows what you have. Marcus's stomach dropped. Who? Claire looked at Richard. He didn't say a word, but the flicker of concern in his eyes was answer enough. And in that moment, Marcus realized this wasn't over. Not even close. Marcus felt the weight of the USB drive in his palm as the reality of Claire's words sank in. Someone else knew. That meant they were being watched. Maybe they had been this whole time. His heart pounded, but he forced himself to stay calm. They had come too far to back down now. Jamal looked around the office as if expecting someone to burst in at any moment. So, what do we do? Claire was already moving. We need to make copies. Multiple copies. If this information gets out before they can stop us, it won't matter who's watching. Marcus nodded. And we need to make sure it's not just in our hands. Richard sighed, rubbing his temples. This is dangerous. These people, he stopped himself, shaking his head. They don't just play defense. If you push them, they push back harder. Marcus met his gaze. Then we push first. Within the next hour, they worked in silence, copying the files onto separate drives, sending encrypted emails to trusted journalists, and backing everything up in secure cloud storage. It was a race against time. Every second felt heavier than the last. Jamal kept watch by the window, glancing out every few minutes. I don't like this. Something feels off. As if on cue, Marcus's phone buzzed. An unknown number. He hesitated, then answered. Hello. A low voice responded. You're making a mistake. Marcus's grip tightened. Who is this? A brief pause. Someone who can make this go away. Walk away now, and you won't regret it. Marcus exhaled, his anger rising. No deal. The call ended without another word. Claire looked at him. What did they say? Marcus slid the phone into his pocket. That we're making a mistake. Jamal scoffed. Then we must be doing something right. The next morning, the truth hit the world like a shockwave. Every major news outlet had the files. Reports flooded in about corruption, stolen funds, and names that had long been untouchable. The city was buzzing, and social media exploded with outrage. Marcus could hardly believe it. It was real. They had done it. But there was no time to celebrate. The fallout came fast. Authorities launched investigations, arrests were made, and resignations followed. Some of the most powerful people in the financial world were suddenly exposed, their influence crumbling under the weight of their own greed. Marcus stood in front of his father's grave later that evening, the cool air brushing against his skin. We did it, Dad, he whispered. They can't bury the truth anymore. Jamal stood beside him, hands in his pockets. He'd be proud, you know. Marcus nodded, feeling a strange mix of relief and exhaustion. Yeah, I hope so. Richard had vanished. Claire said he had left town, probably knowing that staying would mean facing consequences of his own. Marcus wasn't sure if he would ever see him again, but in the end, it didn't matter. As they walked away from the graveyard, Marcus felt something shift inside him. The fight wasn't just about the past anymore. It was about the future. He glanced at Jamal. So, what now? Jamal smirked. Now? We make sure this never happens again. And for the first time in a long time, Marcus knew exactly where he was meant to be.